I'm Nancy Showalter, and you're listening to Spirituality for the Politically Incorrect podcast. Welcome, all radical paradigm shifters and creative change makers. You who dare to create a better life and a better world. Tap into the power that resides within you and use that power for constructive change. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. I'm in a rather reflective mode, meditative mode today, as many of us have probably been, since we've been confined pretty much to our homes and not working during this coronavirus episode. So today I want to talk about a very interesting person. His name is Morihei Ueshiba. You may have heard of him, but he was a Japanese martial artist and the founder of the martial art of Aikido. He lived from 1883 to 1969, and at the age of 86, he succumbed to liver cancer. Apparently, he had periods of ill health over much of his life. But this man had tremendous insight and spiritual development, and I'd like to share some of his teaching from The Art of Peace, which is a book that he has written. It's said he's such a phenomenal martial artist that even at the age of 80, he could disarm any foe, any number of attackers, and also pin an opponent with a single finger, if you could imagine. But even though he's this great warrior, which will explain more of his philosophy, he was really a man of peace. He detested fighting and war and any kind of violence. And his way was Aikido, which he introduced, and that is translated as the art of peace. In his youth, he served as an infantryman in the Russo-Japanese War. He later battled pirates and bandits during an adventure in Mongolia. And then he mastered a number of the martial arts. He served as an instructor in Japan's elite military academies. But actually throughout his whole life he was troubled by the contention and the strife that plagued the world. And he could see in his own life his father had battles with corrupt politicians, and there was the devastation of war and brutality by military leaders. All of this weighed upon him. And he was on a spiritual quest. And he shares 3 visions that he had and that he says transformed his life. The first occurred in 1925 when he was 42 years old. Now, he just completed defeating this high-ranking swordsman by simply avoiding all his cuts and all the thrusts toward him because he was unarmed. Morihei went into his garden after this, and to quote what he says, "Suddenly the earth trembled. Golden vapor welled up from the ground and engulfed me. I felt transformed into a golden image, and my body seemed as light as a feather. All at once I understood the nature of creation. The way of a warrior is to manifest divine love, a spirit that embraces and nurtures all things. Tears of gratitude and joy streamed down my cheeks. I saw the entire earth as my home, and the sun, moon, and stars as my intimate friends. All attachment to material things vanished." The second vision, he says, took place in December of 1940. And this was like about 2 o'clock in the morning when he was performing some ritual purifications. And he said all of a sudden he just forgot every martial art technique he had ever learned. All of the techniques that were handed down to him from his teachers, they like vanished and then appeared to him as something completely new. He said, instead of being devices to throw and pin people and do all these things. He said they were vehicles for the cultivation of life, knowledge, virtue, and good sense. So that was the second experience as he was experiencing his transformation. The third vision was in 1942, which was during the worst of the fighting of World War II, and he had a vision of what he calls the Great Spirit of Peace. And he saw it as a path that could lead to the elimination of all strife and the reconciliation of humankind. He says, in his words, the way of the warrior has been misunderstood as a mean to kill and destroy others. Those who seek competition are making a grave mistake. To smash, injure, or destroy is the worst sin a human being can commit. The way of a warrior is to prevent slaughter. It is the art of peace, the power of love. So when we start to think of these concepts and how even at the age of 80 he could have no weapon in his hands and still deflect everything and defeat an opponent, it's quite amazing, because it does make you appreciate and understand the concept of the oneness of all of life, and that the power within is really the power of love, which is the greatest power in the universe. But that power of love within us is not, it's not a mamby-pamby, a pacifist, I'm not going to fight back because I'm all love. He used the power of love in him to defeat an enemy without violence, without the physical violence that we see in people who are fighting. After these experiences, he pretty much secluded himself in the country and devoted every minute of his life thereafter to refining and spreading Aikido, the art of peace. Now, he differed himself from the authors of old-time warrior classics such as The Art of War and the Book of the Five Rings. These authors and warriors accept the inevitability of war and emphasize cunning strategy as a means to victory. But Morihei had a different view. He understood that the continued fighting with others or with ourselves and with the environment will actually ruin the earth. He says the world will continue to change dramatically, but fighting and war can destroy us utterly. What we need now are techniques of harmony, not those of contention. The art of peace is required, not the art of war. And he taught this art of peace as a creative mind-body discipline, as a practical way of handling aggression, and as a way of life that fosters fearlessness, wisdom, love, and friendship. He interpreted the art of peace in the broadest possible sense and believed that its principles of reconciliation, harmony, cooperation, and empathy could be applied bravely to all the challenges we face in life, whether it's personal relationships or how we interact with society, at work or business, and even with dealing with nature. He said everyone can be a warrior for peace. And the art of Aikido was his gift to humankind. He said some have chosen or will select in the future Aikido as their own particular way, practicing it on the mats and applying it to their daily lives. But he really hoped that many more will be inspired by the universal message of the art of peace and its implications for our world. He writes, the art of peace begins with you. Work on yourself and your appointed task in the art of peace. Everyone has a spirit that can be refined, a body that can be trained in some manner, and a suitable path to follow. He said, you are here for no other purpose than to realize your inner divinity and manifest your innate enlightenment. foster peace in your own life, and then apply the art to all that you encounter. So we have to reflect on this because there's almost a universal belief in the world today that peace means no strength. And yet we know that peace means the most strength, and to use it, just like Morihei is talking about here, for using it, drawing forth that love and power of peace that sustains us, protects us, and wards off any and all aggression. And it's not a Pollyanna view. Morihei did not have that view. In fact, he said the art of peace, it's a medicine for a sick world, that there is evil and disorder in the world because people have forgotten that all things emanate from one source. So if we return to that source and leave behind all self-centered thoughts, petty desires, and anger, those who are possessed by nothing possess everything. Those who are possessed by nothing possess everything. And what is he talking about? He's talking about, are we possessed by anger? Are we possessed by violence? Are we possessed by fear? Are we possessed by depression? Do any of these conditions possess us? When we are possessed by none of these things, whether it's emotions or materialism, when we're not possessed by anything, we possess everything. We can look at the life of some of the masters. Well, just take Jesus Christ. He was possessed by nothing, and he possessed everything. He had powers beyond the normal human being. So there's a lot to learn here. Peace is not just rolling over and denying that there's no such thing as evil in the world because we all come from the one source and all is good. Yes, ultimately, all is good, and we come from the one source. But having free will, we have made choices to misuse that very light of Almighty God that is us. It's where we came from. It's what we're made of. And when you misuse it, then you have this energy veil, this evil in the world. Is it real? In the ultimate sense, of course not. But while we're here in the physical dimension, yes, we deal with it. You can see in the world that yes, indeed, there are evil things, people, and deeds. And he declares in his writings that all things, material and spiritual, originate from one source and are related as if they were one family. The past, present, and future are all contained in the life force. We know even from quantum physics that they're saying past, present, and future are all one. There's really no such thing in the ultimate sense. He says the universe emerged and developed from one source, and we evolved through the optimal process of unification and harmonization. So these are thoughts that we can think about to rise above some of the divisions that we see in our societies and this constant anger and hatred and all of these things, that we need to rise above these extremes. And we want to champion that truth. We want to champion the art of peace and love and strength. Peace through strength is exactly what Morihei Ueshiba taught with the art of Aikido. That you can be a warrior of peace without the violence. And in terms of how we might talk today, it's allowing that mighty presence of God, the I am that I am within, to be the strength, the power, and the love and peace that can transform not only ourselves, but the world at large. I'd like to end today's episode with a final quote from Morihei Ueshiba. He says, "Life is growth. If we stop growing, technically and spiritually, we are as good as dead. The art of peace is a celebration of the bonding of heaven, earth, and humankind. It is all that is true, good, and beautiful. I will see you next week. Until then, keep an open mind, a generous heart, and a powerful spirit. Thank you for being with me today, and if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, download, and comment. I'd love to hear from you, and your support is much appreciated. And don't forget, go to nancyshowalter.com to get your free electronic copy of my book, It's Okay to Be Rich, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Increased Wealth and Personal Mastery, endorsed by T. Harv Eker, and my free mini course, How to Speak Your Success, the shocking truth of how your words impact achieving your goals. I'll see you next week.